welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. Hey, Black Anarchic Reniacs, good to see you. How you doing tonight? Hey, Mask. Just check my microphone real quick. So I keep bumping it, and it's muted, and I just had a stream a couple of days ago, the other stream I do, my language stream, where I was talking for straight 35 minutes, and somebody shows up in chat to say, you know you're muted, right? And I didn't. So since then, I'm a bit paranoid about accidentally muting myself and not even realizing it's happened. Okay, so yesterday we found out what Caleb Maupin thinks about the people, his political bedfellows, and their quaint little penchant for thinking the idea of murdering leftists is funny. And it turns out, I mean, he gave them a stern talking to. He said, "Cut it out, guys. This isn't funny anymore." Which is, of course, exactly how any of us would talk to fascists too. I mean, that isn't well, I mean, actually, no, thinking about it, we probably wouldn't, because fuck them. There's no fucking dialogue to be had with them, but he's having some dialogue with them. Not that he's a fascist or anything, or a sympathizer, but he's having some. So, I'm looking at a couple of options. We got Ben Burgess, who wants us to know that we shouldn't cancel Anna Kasparian, because he's decided everything is a cancel culture. And I mean, he wants to demonstrate to us that the minute somebody starts talking about cancel culture seriously, it's just a matter of time before they start saying some really dodgy shit. Let me see. Yeah, I know. God, Ben Burgess. Then there's also, well, I've got a bunch of stuff on Transphobian here. There's, Transphobian holds her side accountable, causing several meltdowns. We review these responses, 275. I don't know why they put all these words in capitals. I think I mean, they do try to give that sort of only reasonable person in the room thing in, like, their presentation, as far as I can tell. I've watched, like, 5 minutes of them. And, I mean, obviously this really kind of goes with that. Yes. I just find it quite fitting somehow, given the other takes that Anna Transphobian has, espoused recently, where she's just basically, she went on Sitch and Adam, which I'd never heard of until now. Apparently, they specifically exist for people like Anna Kasparian to go and do the left me thing. And, I mean, she didn't even want to talk about the transphobia because she was too busy speed running the white nationalist catechism. I mean, like, just one thing after another. She's talking about, oh, actually, Kaya Rittenhouse was kind of based. Yeah, that Amy Cooper, it turns out that was, she was great. You know, she's just going through all this shit. Like, I mean, just digging up just random shit, too. And it's like, wow. And this is why they call themselves T. Whitey. Reversed his position. What was his initial position? I noticed that he's named his channel after the people who did it. I mean, oh, he denied it? I did not know that. Jesus. Wow, I mean, see, there's so many reasons I'm glad that I never gave a fuck about them to begin with. I mean, I'm seeing all these people, I'm so disappointed in T. Whitey, and it's like, how could you be? There was nothing to be appointed about. They were never that good. In fact, they sucked, actually. But, I mean, I guess, let me just, And then we've got Pim Tool. T. Whitey Anna Kasparian slammed by leftists for saying bonus hole is cringe to women. Because, of course, they dug up this bullshit from 3 years ago, and so, of course, they're gonna get as much mileage out of it as possible. So, this is a tough one. There's also Xanderhole's take on this. That'll be wonderful, of course. It'll be interesting to see Xanderhole talk about Anna Kasparian leaving the left, considering that he's somebody who's never been in it. And then there's It's a Cookbook, Liberal Mind Control Ops by Caleb Muppet, of course. Oh, Voosh attacking. Oh, yeah. Where? Okay, hang on. I didn't see Voosh attacking. Wait a second. I see there's Xanderhole. I don't think I have Voosh attacking him. Will Xanderhole do you? That's Xanderhole is the Pepsi. Is Pepsi okay with you? Of the debate bros. Well, there's the #1 rule of Pride Month from Voosh. I see that one. Oh, Anna Kasparian and Shank Uyghur keep getting worse. Okay, we're gonna do this. But first I gotta make sure I got audio, because I'm doing this a little bit differently now. Because I hate having the headphones on, and my earbuds are unreliable in connecting, and I can't just have them go out on me. Here we go. Anna Kasparian and Pezovenk Uyghur keep getting worse, and they weren't that great to begin with.
Oh, Christ alive. What now? Another TYT video with a 50-50...
Oh, of course this is what he's going to be about. Not about any of the... so they talk... U.S. knew of Ukrainian plot to bomb Nord Stream 2. Last I checked, it was the U.S. that kind of first put the idea out there that it was a Ukrainian plot specifically. Which, if I were Ukraine, it's like, you'd kind of have to wonder, are these people really going to be with us? They are sort of dropping and putting cluster bombs all over the territory. They just had, because it's just the only thing we got. But, okay.
50 like and dislike ratio.
But out of all the things it could have been, this is what it's going to be. Oh, hang on, though. I forgot to start recording. Gotta be recording. Oh, sorry to hear that. That's gotta be it.
U.S. knew all along about Ukrainian plan to attack Nord Stream pipelines. Okay, to be honest with you, I haven't actually looked into the Nord Stream thing at all.
This is... okay, that's how we know that this is classic Voosh stuff, except... because first he doesn't look into it, and then he's going to lecture us on it. Okay, let's see what happens here.
I don't really care. I guess I could believe that anyone sabotaged it. Has there been any real evidence of anyone doing it in particular? The last thing that I saw was Jackson Hinkle posting a photo of a, rusty, disgusting boot buried in the water, and they were like, this is an American boot.
Which... yeah, he did this. He does this a lot. He did this when he was talking about the Chilean elections and how a socialist won, which no, a socialist didn't win. Gabriel Boric won, and he's just... he has a picture of himself, a portrait of himself up in his attic, and every day it looks more and more like Joe Biden. He's just like the Darian Gray version of Joe Biden.
Before America blew it up, or something like that. That's the extent of the evidence that I'm familiar with. I get, anyone could have done it, and I don't really care.
Oh, then why are we talking... okay, you don't know about it, you don't care about it, so why we got a 40-minute video on this, my dude?
There's a claim Biden knew for 3 months Ukraine was planning to attack the pipeline. Well, do you think this video covers that topic? Let's find out.
Indicates that 3 months...
it says that it does, so I would start out from the idea that that's kind of the goal. Please.
Before the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed last September, a close ally to the Biden administration informed the White House about a Ukrainian military plan to essentially launch a covert attack
Like,
on
where are they
the
getting
undersea
this?
network. Now, they would use a small team of divers who would report to the commander-in-chief
this
of
what-
the...
Quick question:
Okay.
by plan, what do we mean exactly? Because America,
Yeah, because that's the question you really want to be sure about is the word plan. Because, I mean, in the context of what would have been a pretty complicated operation to blow up a fucking liquid natural gas pipeline that's undersea, what could plan possibly mean? That's clearly the thing. I'm just gonna look ahead a little bit because I'm kind of curious. Is this all he's gonna be talking about? Oh no, okay. 20 minutes in, we're still talking about Nord Stream. Now, this is not about the latest bullshit.
like the Pentagon has
This may very well be about Anna Kasparian not doing anything particularly bad for a
plans to
change.
invade Canada. Like, military organizations create plans for
Yeah, but see, the thing is, yes, there's such a thing as a contingency plan, but when a thing happens, and there's a plan for it, by somebody who might be one of various people who would benefit from doing it, that does suggest you might want to look a little bit further. I'm not saying that it's definitive evidence of anything, because as far as I can tell, there's no definitive evidence of anything that's been made public, certainly. There's all sorts of room for, let me say, there seem to be lots of productive lines of inquiry that probably it's going to be decades before we have the declassified documents to even pursue.
for contingencies. That's the thing they do. That's what they're paid to do. They have plans. Are we talking about, like, just a plan? Or are we talking about something they planned to do? Because those are two, because that's a very important distinction, you know?
Well, yeah, for example, is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline still around, for example?
No?
Ukrainian armed forces. How do we know about this? How do we know that the White House was briefed on this? What?
God, I mean, this is making me actually say not hostile things about Transphobian, and that's kind of not where I want to be, because so far all she's saying are reasonable things.
Well, it's thanks to the leak that happened on Discord. Let me give you more details on
Oh, this is that. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff came out on that I've seen.
that. Details about the plan.
Con Plan 8888, also known as Counter Zombie Dominance, is a U.S. Department of Defense Strategic Command
Department
CONOP
of
document
Defense?
that describes a plan for the nation and its military defending against any zombies. That's true, by the way.
Well, it's in Wikipedia anyway.
This is one of the reasons that I can't really get into zombie apocalypse films, where it's like, oh, you know, no one was prepared.
What?
That's not true. There is a desk staffer at the Pentagon who has spent his
I should know. CONOP? I mean, I have to say, I have not seen every single abbreviation that might show up in this sort of context. But I've seen a fair few, because I've read a lot of declassified U.S. military, like White House level planning documents as well, and CONOP is not one that's familiar. Chad, has anyone seen CONOP?
entire life perfecting like 78 different types of zombie like defensive strategies.
I mean, I guess contingency operation.
And he, the moment the word go, the moment corpses start shambling around Times Square, that shit is getting enacted.
Which is totally analogous to an LNG pipeline that is operated by a hostile country and is one of their major economic lifelines, and also one of the major economic lifelines for Western Europe. I mean, that is just exactly on the same level of just random bullshit, implausible eventuality.
Pronto, okay? This is his one job, and he's good at his job too.
which have not been previously reported, were collected by a European intelligence service and shared
This is Voosh's one job, and he is not very good at his job.
with the CIA in June of 2022. The European intelligence reporting was shared on the chat platform Discord, allegedly by Air National Guard member Jack Teixeira. The Washington Post obtained a copy from one of Teixeira's online friends.
Okay. Concept of operations. So, yeah, so, in other words, what we're talking about is the beginnings of something from which a plan might subsequently grow. This is the germplasm from which the seed of a plan might conceivably coalesce.
Now, what did that document indicate? Well, it did indicate that the Ukrainian military had a plan in place to essentially carry out this attack on Nord Stream 1 specifically. So the intelligence report was based on intel obtained by an individual.
I don't know. I've heard people say his family's got money, but I really have not actually. I don't know anything about it. Like, I did a deep dive into Caleb Muppet's family to find out when because he once put me on blast because I made a joke about his father being a banker, and he specifically called me a liar about that, and so I decided I wanted to make sure that I was kind of on solid ground if I was going to double down on that, so I decided to actually look into it, figure out, separate all the different Moppins that are out there, and figure out who his father actually was, and it turned out, no, he wasn't a banker. Wasn't anything to do with finance or anything like that. Well, not exactly working at Burger King either, to be clear, but I haven't done anything like that with Voosh's family, because honestly, I don't give a shit about Voosh's family. Nobody's given me a reason to give a shit about Voosh's family, but, his setup is... he's certainly got money coming in from this. He's got way more people in chat.
In Ukraine, the officials in
like any good leftist creator has.
The United States have confirmed this document and the I guess the veracity of the document. It is.
Well, no, I think they probably confirmed the authenticity of the document. The veracity of the document would be the content.
Confirmed. It's not some fake, document that, someone's trying to plant as a hoax. The intelligence report, or the sources for the information could not be immediately corroborated, but the CIA shared the report with Germany and other European countries last June. Okay, so this...
Why did we just have that fucking... Why did it shake like that? Why did that need to happen?
This is intel that was shared not only with the United States, but also with our European allies. Now, according to the...
I always, you're listening to liberals when you start hearing about our allies. It's like, they're not ours any more than that's our military. I can't give that shit orders.
Leaked documents, the Ukrainians had planned to attack the pipeline on the heels of a major allied naval exercise known as Baltops, which ran from June 5th to 17th of 2022, according to the report. The intelligence summary says that...
Which, Baltops backwards is Spot Lab, which is just completely irrelevant to anything, but I always find it interesting when words or abbreviations like this actually can be read as kind of word-like things when you put them backwards. It's just something I do.
That the Ukrainian military operation was put on...
I know, and and the thing is, I don't give a shit about this subject either, to be honest. It's like, this is a good example of something where there's absolutely... Rushing to judgment is absolutely pointless, because there's no way we are going to know the crucial bits of evidence that we're going to need. Oh, this fictitious plan was created by junior military officers undergoing training related to the DoD's joint JOPES. Isn't that fucking that cat that has a Twitter account? JOPES? The formalized process by which the... Oh, so this is just an example that they give to junior officers to show how you create a plan to make a plan? Okay, yeah, so yeah, we're talking kind of different levels of magnitude. I kind of thought that I can believe all sorts of random weird contingency plans are on file with the DoD, but that one seemed a little bit out there even by their standards. It avoided concerns of the use of classified information, which I immediately find interesting because that's the sort of surrogate that you can get in trouble with, because you already are using this as a metaphor for something for which you might be using classified information, and so it can kind of sneak in deep background anyway. But yes.
On hold for reasons that remain unclear.
Okay.
And I want to just stop for a second and provide this caveat. Although we have this document, although we know the Ukrainian military was planning to, conduct this operation and attack the Nord Stream pipeline.
Well, we know that the U.S. is saying that. We can't really say for 100% certain that we know that they believe that. We know that the U.S. is saying it, the U.S. isn't denying that this document exists and stuff like that. That does not in itself mean that the U.S. is actually acknowledging that this is going on, and even if the U.S. is saying that, it doesn't mean it's true. And it's going to be a very long time, I think, before we can really be all that sure about it, unless another one of these dickheads decides to impress his mates on Discord by leaking some more shit, which I am there for. I mean, please, put it in a more popular... put it in a Discord that I have some chance of actually seeing before the stuff gets nuked. But, I'm tiring of this, because I was really kind of hoping for the Anna Kasparian bullshit that I have on my mind. And this is Anna Kasparian actually not doing anything terribly unreasonable. Oh. Oh, fuck. Okay. This.
Well,
Here we go. See, this is how you know that Anna Transphobian's been totally reasonable, because Tim Pool is over here already. I mean, he's looking like a happy doomer meme. He's a happy Wojak.
I often say I'm not one to engage in silly e-drama. Sometimes...
Oh yeah, I mean, he would never engage in any kind of silly e-drama.
The stories, I think, actually matter and how they shape culture. In this story, we have the Young Turks' Anna Kasparian under fire from the left.
You see, he's a real intellectual.
For correctly pointing out that bonus hole, as a term, is offensive.
No, that's not exactly what happened. What happened was a fucking cervical cancer charity in Britain 3 years ago published a guide on how to promote the cervical health of underserved populations, which includes trans men and non-binary people. And they said in this context, one thing you need to be aware of is that your patients may not be comfortable with the conventional words for their bits, and you should ask them what they're comfortable with, and gave some examples of terms trans men might be comfortable with, one of which was bonus hole, which is also my nickname for Tim Pool. And they also said front hole, but in any case, so nothing came of this. There's literally just this one charity from 3 fucking years ago that said that this might make some of your patients more comfortable, but to always check. And then the Daily Mail The newspaper that was so pro-fascist that the Nazis during World War II literally used Daily Mail articles translated into German for their domestic propaganda. That's the Daily Mail. Decided to dig this up 3 years later and start a fucking some kind of outrage baiting one of the 3,000 articles a month published in Britain inciting violence against trans people. Tim Pool has a bonus hole under that ever-present beanie. Yeah, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The man looks like a glams that somebody painted a beard and a little hat on.
You may have seen the story. We usually save conversations like that for the members-only show over at timcast.com, so become a member and support us there if you'd like.
Yeah, no.
But in this story, there is a group in the UK that believes an appropriate alternative term for female private
Yeah, this is exactly not what it
parts is bonus hole. That's right. They say that, you know what, if you want to refer to
Why don't you scroll down and let us see the article?
a private part of a lady, you can call it a bonus hole. And it actually exists.
That is not what it says, of course. But, okay.
An Urban Dictionary. And you know what? Surprise, surprise, it's offensive to a lot of people. For some reason, the terms relating to women are the ones that are getting erased. No one's
erased.
Like, we're going to get a little dirty in this segment, but I guess we have to. No one's
yeah, because he's so clean normally.
Calling guys. You don't see the left, and fair warning, you don't see the left coming out being like, we're going to refer to men as cummers.
Actually, first of all, I don't need to have it in my head. I don't need the concept of Tim Pool talking about coming in my head. I do not need that con plan. I, in fact, need the con plan for erasing that particular memory permanently from my brain. But, yeah, actually, Tim, there are all sorts of conversations about the reciprocal issue of what trans women find comfortable to describe their bits. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, and it's complete nonsense as well, because nobody's talking about the ladies. Yeah, nobody's saying this is a term that women will love you to refer to their stuff as. It's fucking trans men and non-binary people who are uncomfortable with conventional terms, and it says, check to make sure they're comfortable. Check to make sure what term makes them comfortable.
Or load busters. They're like, they refer to women as birthing people and menstruators.
Well, no, they don't. They specifically don't refer to women as birthing people and menstruators, because the groups that those two terms refer to do not only include women.
Now, there's a very simple reason why this is.
Yeah, because trans people exist, and not everybody who menstruates or gives birth is a woman. Yeah, that's what you're going to say, Tim, right?
Pause. The question. Why is it that terms related to women often get erased or changed in...
Well, what you haven't even, like, it's great how he just sort of jumps over so the cervical cancer charity says this is a term that some of your patients might be more comfortable with, and we jump to they're banning the word vagina.
Strange ways, and terms related to men do not.
Yeah, exactly. Not even all cis women do those things.
It is because wokeness is largely a movement of females, and men tend to care a lot less.
What the fuck? So his idea for why the wokeness has decided to acknowledge that trans men exist and need pelvic exams is because the wokeness is mostly female, and being mostly female, the wokeness of course wants to erase women. Okay, we're going well. Yeah, females. I can't do Quark's voice.
Unless they're like anti-woke individuals. It is not absolute. Not every man, not every woman agrees. I'm saying it is a
anti-woke
tendency.
individuals.
In this clip, I'd like to play for you what is causing all of the drama with the Young Turks and Anna Kasparian. But I want to say first and foremost the reason why this matters.
Oh, okay, let's hear it. Why does this matter, Tim? Because you're going to point out that this is a lie, right? That this is actually a bunch of bullshit, and none of this actually is any of the things you just said? Right?
The Young Turks have long been liberal establishment personalities.
And I will have to say, I have absolutely no notes on that. They are liberal establishment personalities. That is precisely why it is concerning that they've decided to make this kind of very open overture to the far right with all this shit. All of a sudden. I mean, that... the Young Turfs. That just bodes so well. I mean, my own take on it is I tend to think that they, being so completely up the Democratic Party's ass, have decided, since the Democrats are doing fuck all to protect reproductive freedom, doing fuck all to even pretend to be taking up the cause of Black Lives Matter or to fight against the trans exterminationist laws or any of that stuff, and we're in the run-up to an election year, you have two options if you are basically a surrogate for the Democratic Party, and one is you can talk about that shit, and you can talk about it from the point of view that would be more or less on the right side of history, in which case you're criticizing the Democrats in an election year on a fundamental issue. Or you can give them cover, and the way you give them cover when they're doing fuck all to protect LGBT rights when they're massively under attack, when they're doing fuck all to protect abortion rights when they're massively under attack, etc., 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 and, you know, in their response to Black Lives Matter is to just, like, flood the fucking country in cops, of course, is to just go actually to the right of them so that they have cover, so that they look more moderate than the Young Turfs and than Anna Transphobian and Pezevenk Uyghur.
They, in my opinion, feign being progressives, but are very, very much so just on the edge of establishment acceptable corporate media.
Again, I this is painful. This is actually more painful than the Anna Kasparian bit where just a minute ago was having to say actually what everything she's saying here is pretty reasonable. But his description of TYT, I have no notes. Once again, this is exactly how I would describe them. This must not go on.
Granted, they've said offensive and shocking things in the past.
Yeah, for example, this thing, which you've embraced, of course.
But they really do fall just on that line on the inside, not on the outside. Leftists on the outside are very different. But what's happening is...
Yeah, like, he doesn't even know what leftists are. I mean, when he actually tries to define what leftists are, it is wild shit. Because if you're going to say TYT is, you know, establishment liberal, when you've already said, like, he said, like, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are radical leftists. If he drew up, like, the political spectrum graph, that shit would be weird.
Because the Young Turks, you know, and I'll tell you this, they used to be very reasonable people. I think they chased after the left cult because they wanted to remain fitting in, and they wanted to maintain their audience. It eventually drove them to the edges, where finally they were just like, hey, maybe that's a bridge too far.
But the thing is, it isn't a bridge too far. Anna Kasparian, like 11 months ago, not even an entire year ago, did a video where she explained why the whole thing about birthing people was a bunch of right-wing bullshit and why it should not be indulged for a second. This isn't like some political evolution on her part. This is very much, and it's clearly also on Cenk's part, because, I mean, he's defended her the whole way. And he's not shown any sign, you know, publicly of being, like, surprised or shocked by anything she's said. And he's immediately jumped onto, like, begging for a discrimination suit by publicly smearing trans people who resign from their employment because it's a hostile work environment. So, I mean, this is all... it's clearly a calculated move. It is not some bridge too far moment. because she actually had a more or less reasonable take on this shit just 11 months ago.
And now, Anna Kasparian, I believe, is correctly calling out phrases like bonus hole, and the point she's making 100% correct. If you,
Like, when was the last time you heard somebody actually use the term bonus hole? I've heard Tim Pool say the phrase more than I've heard anyone else say it. And, I mean, I have to say, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the term. I mean, it's not for me, so I don't have to be. But I'm really not a fan of hearing the term in Tim Pool's voice.
if you want to stop transphobia, you need to talk about what is reasonable to the average person, not just go around calling women menstruators or things like that, or birthing.
Wait, Tim Pool's gonna give us advice on how to stop transphobia, chat. I mean, we've been waiting for this, because if anyone is committed to the cause of stopping transphobia, it's Tim Pool, the guy who celebrated the Club Q massacre.
People. She's right. What does the left do? They attack her for it. Now, I will also add...
They did not attack her! I mean, as Olayemi pointed out, everybody was just bending over backwards to try to find some way to give her the benefit of the doubt and act like she didn't know anything about anything. And say, oh, you know, actually, Anna, this is... maybe you didn't hear, but there are transphobes in the world, and they're putting out bullshit, and this is an example of the bullshit. I'm sure you just didn't realize it was actually pathetic, and it was so pathetic that she needed to actually do it again, just so she could actually piss some of these people off, so that she could have the narrative she needed.
I have very little trust in the Young Turks, because even after they correctly will call things out, that we here at Timcast have been calling out for a long time,
like, if you actually give a shit about anything that you're doing and you work at the Young Turks, this ought to be a moment where you say, what the hell am I doing with my life? Update your CV and go someplace else. If Tim Pool is here, like, celebrating your takes, you fucked up.
still act like they're opposed to us, when in fact...
Yeah, well, unless you're Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur, who clearly did not fuck up, they did exactly what they were intending to do.
That when it comes to issues of actual policy, Anna Kasparian and Cenk Uygur and I have very similar political views.
Like, I mean, this is damning with faint praise here.
But when it comes to matters of truth and fact, Anna and Cenk probably believe things that are factually not true.
Well, I mean, this is an example of them believing things that are factually not true.
We can talk about Russiagate. We can talk about Biden, Burisma, and all that stuff. And I can tell you the hard facts of the matter.
No, you can't. I mean, if you can, you've been holding out. It's like the guy Lee Hongzhi, the head of Falun Gong and Shen Yun, who once in an interview said, "Yeah, all of our members can levitate. They choose not to." See, that's Tim Pool and giving people the hard truth. He can't.
Because I'm reading multiple sources and international sources, and I can give it to you in terms of probability. Not everything is absolutely true, and you have competing interests trying to lie. But the reality is, Joe Biden did engage in a quid pro quo. It's on video. Making an excuse for that seems to make no sense. But this is what the Young Turks seem to do, because they don't want to not be left-wing, despite the...
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you want to be left-wing, you gotta be down with Joe Biden. I mean, that is really a ride-or-die position. If you want to be left-wing, you gotta be down with the guy who said that, who was instrumental in making it impossible for us to both remain alive and discharge our student loan debt. You gotta be down with him if you want to be left-wing.
The fact that everyone's calling him right-wing anyway. Let me show you exactly how it goes. Here's the video in question. Oh, I'm sorry, I always...
Wait, I mean, he acknowledges that everybody's calling Joe Biden right-wing. I don't know about everyone, but anyone who is certainly right about it. And Joe Biden's own campaign material during his time in the Senate also presented him as the right-wing choice. You know, a real conservative was the headline on one of his campaign flyers. But, I mean, whoever did is certainly not... But you have to be down with the guy everybody's calling right-wing in order to be left-wing. What did I just hear?
Let's do this. You know, I always do it. Every single time. We'll fix the audio and press play.
Marginalized communities. I think that protecting, you know, marginalized communities, protecting the transgender community is important.
Then why are you doing what you're doing, Anna? Because that's not protecting the transgender community.
However, when you move out of or move far away from making sure that they are not denied housing, making sure that they're not denied healthcare.
We're literally talking about making sure they're not denied healthcare. Because trans people, particularly when it comes to this sort of healthcare, when it comes to reproductive healthcare, that is an area trans people have a particularly hard time getting healthcare. Trans men in particular, I've read quite a few narratives of like trans men talking about their experiences trying to get pelvic exams and nobody even taking their appointment because their voice sounds the wrong way or whatever. And so this is literally an attempt to make healthcare more accessible to trans people, which supposedly is your goal.
When you move into like these more fringe areas of like, I mean, there was a story out of the UK this week, blows my mind. There was an LGBT.
Yeah, like, I mean, and here, I'm begging you. I'm fucking begging you. I know Chad, I don't need to tell. Somebody will see this someday and needs to hear it. If you read a story in the British press that gives you the reflexive response of getting outraged at trans people, you're reading lies. You're reading fucking lies. No two ways about it. Not distortions, not misrepresentations, just fucking lies. Because you can just get away with that. Even with the draconian medieval libel laws that they have in Britain, you can get away with libeling the shit out of trans people. And in fact, the entire media does. So, your outrage is better channeled on behalf of trans people who in Britain are actually, I mean, the discussion in the trans community in Britain for a long time has been now, maybe this is the time we should be getting the hell out of the country. It's looking just worse and worse every day. And yeah, so of course, somebody who claims to be down with the trans community is going to just trust the fucking British press.
LGBTQ group in the UK who suggested that instead of referring to vaginas as vaginas because it might be offensive to transgender men, one of the potential replacements or substitutes could be bonus hole.
That is literal fucking propaganda.
No, what? Do you know what propaganda is? Okay, who is that dude? It's somebody whose name begins with a Z. The text is too small to read it. But that's what he comes with. That's literal. He doesn't know what
This is the same shit as when Joe Rogan went out there and said, well, there's a guy I know, his wife works at a school where they let the kids just shit in litter boxes because they identify as cats. That's bullshit.
Okay, what is he saying? Is he Okay, I don't know who this guy is. I don't even know what he's responding to. But it actually... Okay, maybe he's actually pointing out that what Anna Kasparian is saying is bullshit. As opposed to... I mean, it's confusing. Let me see.
So you got these two guys. I don't know there.
Which two guys? There are four guys on here.
Kasparian saying that she is lying and that it's propaganda.
It is propaganda. And it is a lie. Maybe she didn't bother to actually look into what it actually said, although it sounds like she did. It sounds like she did, because she did get it right. What a lot of the people who who are the target audience for this bullshit get wrong and said it is about making trans men more comfortable. So I think she actually did bother to look into it, because this is a more accurate representation of it than I've seen every other place that I've seen this from people who are endorsing it.
And Anna responded, I don't make things up, and my point is that this stuff turns people off.
Ooh. Turns who off, exactly? And which stuff? I mean, the bullshit or your bullshit?
It's not really controversial, and Anna's correct. Yeah, this is a story.
Well, I'm glad that he's here to tell us she's correct.
Covered it. It's a story. It happened. Bonus hole. Why it's going viral. Because an organization said, use the term bonus hole if some people are offended by it.
I think it was actually the exact opposite of that, you'll find, Tim, that they said.
Bonus hole is, the term comes from a coin pusher game. that you put, you know those things where you put the quarter in and it falls down and then the thing goes out and pushes the quarters and they fall? That's what bonus hole is. It's almost like it's intended to insult women.
Or maybe it is actually a term that some trans men like to describe their own shit.
Oh boy. Let me see. I've got a bunch of tweets pulled up.
Like,
I want to make sure I
specifically
pull up. Where is it? Is it this one? Here we go. This trap queen enthusiast on Twitter said,
Yeah. I think this actually gives this meme does Anna Kasparian a little bit more credit than she's due at this point, because she is not actually standing in between trans exterminationists and people who support trans rights and saying you're both crazy. She's very much on team we want to kill trans people, but she just doesn't want to admit it.
as Anna Kasparian did the meme. And you've got people on the left, one with trans flags, and Republicans on the right. And of course, this is...
Wow, why would anyone suggest that Republicans want to kill trans people in this year of 2023? What do you think? Do you think, Tim, anything might have happened sometime in the past year that makes people think that maybe Republicans want to kill trans people? Like maybe something like 400 fucking bills that are designed to make it impossible for trans people to actually live in society?
is the nature of the modern left. Anna Kasparian holding up a sign in the middle that says, "You're both crazy." One side says, "We want trans rights." The Republicans are threatening to end the lives of trans people.
He can't say kill on his own stream. That is so cute.
Okay. Republicans aren't really doing that.
Yes, they fucking are, and you've celebrated it, Tim.
That's not a real thing. And the people on the left who are saying, "We want trans rights," are going well beyond the argument about housing.
Well, yeah, because trans rights isn't just about housing.
Anna Kasparian brings up the issues of protecting housing and medical care for trans people.
Yeah, and then she turns around and says, and outrage baits using an example from 3 years ago of a cervical cancer charity that was trying to protect health care for trans people.
So I can make it very, very clear for everybody, but y'all know me anyway.
I mean, I'm sure we all got the point, though, that apparently if you want to be on side with Tim Pool in your trans rights advocacy, you got to stick to housing.
Okay? Trans people absolutely must get health care. Real health care. You can't discriminate. I don't think you should discriminate. In fact, I lean...
What do you mean real health care, motherfucker?
More towards the liberal view of providing services to everyone because of the shared common spaces.
Which services, though?
Libertarians disagree because they don't believe in common public spaces, public spaces or whatever, the commons. But I think if we're all paying taxes currently in the system, you should accommodate to the best of your ability.
Wait, does he think that most people have access to a public healthcare system in the U.S.? Does he? What the?
I certainly understand when it comes to that wedding cake thing in Colorado. It's like they weren't denied service; they were denied a specific written message. That's a very interesting question. But ultimately, it's like, don't discriminate against people and, provide general service. We'll all get along.
Well, again, it's not just about general service. What the hell is general service? I mean, what he's doing here, I'm pretty sure, in chat you probably realize it, is he's throwing these dog whistles. This is like when TERFs, there used to be a thing for a while. I haven't seen him do it in a bit, where they'd go, "Oh, we're totally for the civil rights of trans people." And people who didn't know anything about their fucked up discourse would think that this meant that they actually supported trans rights. I mean, versions of this still go on. Like Alison Bailey, one of the leading TERFs in Britain right now, she tried to sue her chamber, she's a barrister, for discrimination because they asked her not to, when representing the chamber, say bigoted things because the chamber is very specifically supposed to be dedicated to opposing discrimination. And she said that was she said it was discrimination to discriminate against people who want to discriminate, basically. And in that context, she did go up in the witness box and say that she supported trans rights. And apparently, from what I can tell from the written opinion in the tribunal and the live tweeting, nobody actually asked her what that means. What she actually means when she says this. And that has been a thing. Like Maya Forstater in her tribunal also claimed to support trans rights
Because
without any specific.
So when it comes to the legitimate question of a trans person is suffering some medical issue, yeah, they should be able to go to the doctor. There should be no discrimination there.
What medical issue? I'm having trouble following what he's saying too, because he's trying to avoid saying. See, I think what he's trying to say, what he's actually trying to say is, he thinks that trans people should have access to all health care that other people would have access to, but not to any healthcare specifically required by trans people. But he doesn't want to say that openly because he's a cowardly, dishonest little fuck, and so he's going to pretend, he's going to avoid it, he's going to dog whistle. He knows his audience will understand that he's very specifically, he's saying if a trans person has a broken knee, they should be able to get, they should be able to get that seen to. They should get knee surgery or a splint or, a cast, whatever they need. But if a trans person needs a hormone prescription refill, they're shit out of luck. That is what he's trying to say. But he's being he's obfuscating this deliberately, and it makes it very hard to follow.
But you see what they're really saying is they want children to get sex changes.
What? Huh? Wait, I missed something here. Wait, what was the first part of that fucking sentence?
A trans person is suffering some medical issue. Yeah, they should be able to go to the doctor. There should be no discrimination there. But you see what they're really saying is they want children to get sex changes.
First of all, get sex. What decade are we in that people are still saying that? Like, the last time I heard somebody even use that phrasing would have been in the late 1990s.
Well, I don't think we have any real definitive science or on-label medications that...
On-label is, okay, he knows specifically what he definitely knows what he's doing there. Because the thing is that off-label prescribing is a normal fucking thing to do. And it is completely embraced when there is science, as there is in this case. When, there are peer-reviewed studies going over a long period of time, as, again, there are in this case, and the major medical organizations endorse it, as they do in this case. There's nothing wrong with off-label prescribing. The reality is that the FDA, getting the FDA to specifically convene studies and an entire process in order to get another indication added to the label is considered prohibitive, particularly when you're dealing with a rare thing. Yeah, Poole has an obsession with all sorts of things that he should be kept away from.
Currently. I'm not a doctor, so it's...
Yeah, I know. So shut the fuck up, baby.
It's just my opinion.
Your opinion is just bullshit, though. You're just an ignorant fuck. Yeah.
Everybody has an opinion. Some people...
Yeah, I mean, opinions are like Tim Pool's. Everybody has them, and nobody should hear them.
Say, I agree with the AMA and disagree with the Scandinavian countries that abandoned this. My attitude...
It's not just the AMA, though. It is literally every major, not just in the U.S., internationally. The Scandinavian countries where far-right governments have been attacking trans rights are going against the medical consensus here.
It is. I certainly understand the position by many of these medical organizations. They are certainly making a lot of money, to be honest.
Opinions are like assholes. We're listening to one right now on YouTube.
But if desistance rates are so high...
Which they're, so high. Which is, you see, what he does, he took the bogus studies from about 15 years ago that did not distinguish between gender non-conforming children and trans children. And then he said, the 60% that they got in those bogus studies that didn't even specifically study trans kids, that isn't alarming enough. So he added 30 percentage points to it and claimed that it was actually 90%.
Then it seems like the safest course of action, logically, would be non-intervention. Hey, but far be it for me, I'm not a doctor.
Well, then maybe shut the fuck up, because clearly you can't even read studies.
I'll just tell you what I think we should do. I'll tell you what...
Well, no, that's not... See, you say, I'm not a doctor, to acknowledge that you lack the requisite knowledge, expertise, experience, etc., in order to give an opinion on this subject that is worthy of being listened to at all. And then you just move on to another subject that you can talk about without being a complete schmuck.
What's going on in Florida, in many other states, they're banning this.
Yeah, exactly. This is what they're talking about in that meme where you denied that anyone was doing anything that was killing trans people. That's why it's the last I heard is like over 200,000 trans people and their families are fleeing these states. Now, does that sound like they feel they're well served by this policy, Tim?
Based on the science, and the left is getting mad about it. By all means, argue in favor or whatever for your political opinions. But the thing here is that Anna Kasparian is not saying anybody's, she's not coming out and arguing that it is crazy to say trans people have a right to life.
No, she's just saying, she's just using a far-right newspaper's bullshit story designed to outrage bait over a cervical cancer charity's attempt to encourage inclusiveness of underserved populations in order to incite against trans people, having already done that once in the past couple of weeks.
She's saying, when you use terms like womb haver, menstruator, and bonus hole, you are pushing people away.
Yeah, I mean, because we totally would have had Tim Pool if it hadn't been for bonus hole. Wow, you could... I could just pop him right now. He's a bubble.
And she is correct. Which is why...
I'm so glad he's giving us advice on how to win people over to trans rights.
We are in this political space here at Timcast.
The political space being on the far right, but lying about it.
Because policy-wise, probably a liberal. Yeah, pro-choice, progressive taxes, all that good old traditional liberal stuff. But when it comes to the issue of facts...
Well, actually, on the issue of pro-choice, Anna Transphobian also decided to adopt a right-wing talking point. And the best part was she used it to attack Lance from the Serfs. For having said that this whole thing about third trimester abortions at 9 months is complete bullshit, that it's completely distracting from the reality, and that on the very extremely rare cases where something like that is necessary, it's being done because basically somebody's gonna die if you don't do it. And she then sort of threw him under the bus, said, well, the only people who like, abortions at 9 months is like Lance from the Serfs, I guess. And then she went on to say the exact same thing that he had said. So yeah, I mean, she's just... Everybody's excoriating Kasparian. I mean, it's taken them long enough because so many of these like leftist and left-leaning YouTube creators who have any kind of viewership at all, i.e., like not me. I mean, not to say you're no kind of viewership, but I mean, you're absolutely wonderful, and I always love seeing you. That's not what I mean. I hope you don't take that the wrong way. But, people who actually get to have a K after the number of views on their shit, or an M, they pretty much all seem to have, in some way, gotten the same kind of break from T. Whitey that Tim Pool got from Joe Rogan. And so the result of it is, so many of them were trying to find some way that they could, some nice way to address this and not do anything, not outright just call her out for her shit. And it was actually kind of pathetic.
Yeah, I guess conservative reality has a conservative bias these days.
No,
Look at how they're lying.
You can try
about
that, Tim, but it still doesn't work.
Claiming that Republicans want to kill trans people.
As you just acknowledged, they did. Because the thing is, when you start banning trans people's health care, which you very carefully avoided when you started talking about trans people and healthcare, you very carefully avoided saying anything about the specific healthcare trans people need on account of being trans. Well, what you're saying is that you're taking away one of the things that is kind of foundational to remaining alive and deliberately doing something that is going to cause the suicide rate to shoot up at the same time as telling every fascist asshole in the state that it's open season and the government's not going to really give a shit if they do shit to trans people.
And they only want rights, and she's attacking both of them, which is a complete fabrication.
Well, yeah, because she's not attacking the point. She's not attacking the people who want to kill trans people. It's true. This is a total fabrication. She is not attacking the people who want to kill trans people. She is embracing them. She's going on a fucking goodwill tour of them.
What they do. Now I'll stress the point. The fact that Anna Kasparian and the Young Turks are still feigning this being liberal thing is why I don't trust them at all. I think the Young Turks are crashing into... They can't have their cake and eat it too.
Which cake are we talking about?
My position. I got started doing all of this, and I said, I don't care what your opinion is. I care about what the facts are.
Yeah, God. Yeah, I mean, that's what everybody knows you as, Tim. You're the guy who fact-checks everything.
Have your opinion based on the facts. So certainly people got mad and said, you changed, man. What happened? And I'll...
Yeah, I'm gonna say, speaking of things based in facts, I'm pretty sure that this narrative ain't.
Be like, the fact said X, I said X, and you got mad. Have a nice day. All the Occupy Wall Street people being like, what happened to Tim? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and this is just such a good example of something I've been saying. I've had occasion to say it just recently. It seems to me like all the best and worst stuff from like the past, from in sort of off mainstream politics, or like let's say in politics in general, apart from like the very top of the party system, but all of it seems to have had its roots. All the best and the worst has significant roots in Occupy. Pretty much all the fash you run into, there's some kind of Occupy connection. All the worst grifters, the Micah Whites, the fucking Caleb Muppets, speaking of fash as well, they also claim roots in Occupy. But then on the other hand, I think a lot of the sort of more direct action, organized direct action tendencies and a lot of the thought around acknowledging things like inequality and exploitation when a Democrat's in office, I think that also comes from Occupy. It's like Occupy has managed to give us a lot of really good things, and it's also given us fucking Tim Pool and Caleb Muppet.
Used to be honest. Remember when I filmed the far...
When did he used to be honest?
Leftists deflating the tires in New York? Yeah. Remember when the far left in New York, the black bloc people threatened me with violence and physically attacked me?
Yeah, they clearly didn't do a good job. I've never heard of Vanguard.
Nothing has changed in that regard. I'm going to say what is.
Yeah, especially if it is consistent with a far-right narrative.
Of my abilities. And that means I lose followers. It comes and goes in waves. I had Trump supporters really supporting me, and then they got mad because I said Trump didn't win the election, and he didn't. You see how it goes?
Ooh, wow. I mean, here he is taking the controversial stand that the election results are what the election results are. Incidentally, Chad, I have a feeling that he took a while to actually... I seem to remember him taking a while to ultimately decide that the election results were what the election results were. Let me know if I'm wrong about that.
They say Tim's just grifting to get right-wing support.
Well, yes, that's exactly right. That's the entire thing.
And then come the election, I said Trump did not win. It was not stolen in the context of Chinese ballots and satellites and all that stuff.
Wait, it was not stolen in the context of Chinese ballots? What does that mean? Are you saying it was stolen in another context, Tim?
And a lot of people got mad and unfollowed me. Okay, what am I going to do about it? Just lie for followers?
Well, I mean, that's what's worked for you so far.
That's what I think the Young Turks do. That's my opinion. And I think what's happening now is the Young Turks are crashing into the problem of...
The hilarious thing is that this is just a version of the sort of shit, the sort of cope that the TYT are putting out right now in response to the fact that basically anyone who gives a shit about trans people, anyone who has any, like, serious claim to oppose racism is looking at them in just absolute disgust. Or, like, just complete unsurprise, as is the case of some of us, because it was obvious they sucked.
You can't be a big platform called...
Oh, no, the Chinese ballots thing, that is real. That is one of the various things fascists claimed in 2020. They claimed that China was manipulating the ballots. That was one of the things. But, I mean, what I'm referring to here is... He immediately says, I'm not saying the election was stolen, and he immediately goes back and qualifies that in the context of Chinese ballots.
Women bonus hole havers, because it offends China.
No, nobody's calling women bonus hole havers. As Anna Kasparian actually correctly pointed out, it was a term that was suggested. She herself pointed out this much. Which is how you know that she read enough that she knew that she was actually just piling on a line of bullshit. Because if she read far enough to know as much as she actually said, then she knows that this is not something that is at all legitimate fodder for any kind of outrage bait. Because it was just somebody trying to make trans men and non-binary people comfortable when they're getting pelvics.
So you have to call it out. But the progressives you've courted, well, now they don't want to follow you. That's why the best thing you can do is just be true to what you think and what you believe and just stand by it.
Yeah, and that changes every once in a while. It's sort of like Tim Pool for like 4 years under Trump. He was the free speech guy. He was the free speech guy. He was a free speech warrior. He hated the censorship. Not so much that he would ever risk his platform by saying any of the things that he knew YouTube would he'd be in trouble with YouTube for saying or anything like that. Always shied away from that. It's why he prefaced comers so many times. First of all, it occurs to me that we've learned a lot about Tim Pool's sex life to the extent that it exists. That he thinks that only men come. But yeah. And you know, the censorship was the worst thing ever, and the enemy is the people who are the book burners and all this stuff. And then when he's talking about sex ed with what's her name, Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report, and he's like, censorship is good, and he says it and like as nobody should be surprised that he says this, because it's just always been his position. Yeah, he shifts his fucking position all the time.
And if the end result is nobody wants to follow you, at least you knew you stood your ground. This is where we're at. I love this one. This is a YouTube video. Hassan himself didn't say this. It's on Google. Anti-Anna Kasparian goes further right-wing. There are a bunch of clips that have been put up showing that Anna Kasparian claiming that she's right-wing, claiming Cenk Uyghur's...
Well, she is right-wing. That's the thing. That's why you like her, Tim. I mean, Tim does not like it when people point out that he's right wing. That's another thing that, like, I think. I mean, in that, he just in both of those debates, which I think were actually pointless, except that they gave, some things for people like me to talk about. But I think honestly, it's probably a good idea just not to do that shit. But. He really gets offended by the idea that he's some sort of a conservative or anything, despite the fact that all he does is stand Republicans all the fucking time.
Right wing. And here's one of my favorite ones. Take a look at this. This one Twitter user, Hassan, highlighted, says, "Always amazing to me that Anna and Cenk keep seeing Hassan getting more and more popular. And instead of thinking, hey, maybe we got to shift a bit more to the left, perhaps be a little more loose and casual, they go to the opposite. Quote, what if we were Tim Pool?"
Oh, yeah, Tim. Let's see what he does with this. But,
Okay.
Oh, wow, it's a spicy meatball.
Okay. What if you were?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're kind of saying she is, because you haven't really had any real criticism of anything that she said on this subject yet.
Let's talk about that. The Young Turks have been around for a very, very, very long time.
They've been around for not as long as the internet has been around. How long have they been around? 2002. Okay, that is a bit, but that isn't a very, very, very long time, Tim. That's 21 years.
And something's holding them back. They used to be bigger, now they're smaller. I wonder why.
Yeah, they keep on getting smaller now that they decided to do this right-wing shit.
Timcast has been around for a couple of years. And we are...
How long has Timcast been around? Let me see here. Yeah, no, I mean, less than 10 years, but still long enough.
One of the most successful and fastest growing media companies.
We don't know what happens under
independent, I should say. No financial investment, no big backers, doing it all on our own. And we are...
I'm going to have to go through SourceWatch on this. No big backers. Like, I mean, except for, like, the entire right-wing media ecosystem promotes his shit. SourceWatch doesn't have anything on him.
Wildly successful with around 35 or so employees, growing new shows. We have a new multi-million-dollar facility under construction.
Another one of his fucking compounds designed with the aesthetics of 12-year-olds in mind.
We're doing really well, thanks to you guys as members, primarily. So maybe the issue is not that Hassan is getting more popular. Sure, he's a big streamer who's found...
Yeah, but, I mean... It seems like he certainly seems to be everywhere lately, so I kind of think that it's probably true that he is being more popular.
On his audience. But maybe the Young Turks are starting to realize the real average person doesn't want to be called a menstruator.
And how many of those real average people, Tim, do you think have even heard the term?
We had Lance from the Surfs on the show. I'll wrap it up with this.
Oh, yes, and I will say one moment that I do think was almost worth the direct engagement, which I actually think you shouldn't have done, was when they started using the groomer libel, and Lance insisted on pointing out what the term actually means, and, saying, this specifically means manipulating children into a sexual relationship, and watching Tim and the rest of those pricks duck for cover. Just absolute take a dive to get away from it. No, we don't mean that. It was like, when, of course, everybody in their audience hears it, and that's what they're thinking, unless they read the Chris Rufo thread where he breaks down how he has constructed this particular lie. This Chris Rufo of the Manhattan Institute is very proud of his bullshit, so much so that he actually will tell you exactly how he came up with it.
I asked him, if you went to DC National Harbor, they got the casino there, they got the Ferris wheel, and you stood before all of the people there and proclaimed that I want to be family friendly. Engaging in adult activities with a biological male who was trans is not gay.
Okay. That is just fucking word salad, but go ahead.
Would they agree with you? And
Like, first of all, who engaging in adult activities with a trans woman? And what adult activities?
he said, no, of course not.
I'm very curious to see whether this actually... I haven't seen the whole thing.
And I said, you're in a cult. Hassan?
Wait, you were expecting him... What? He gave... What?
He said, no, of course not. Logical male who is trans is not gay. Would they agree with you? And he said, no, of course not. And I said, you're in a cult.
Okay, because he gave... Supposedly, according to this story, which may be completely made up, it is Tim Pool after all, he gave the answer Tim was looking for and said, there are people who would disagree on this. Then that means he's in a cult? Is he saying that if you agree, if you give an answer that Tim Pool is specifically trying to solicit, that means you're in a cult? What did I just hear?
Hassan, let's say this. His market cap is 10 million people out of 7 billion.
That's not what market cap is.
Moderate, reasonable behavior has a market cap of probably 70 million.
That's not, again, that's still not what fucking market cap is. He doesn't know what the term means. And what the hell... Like, what does any of this even mean? Like, we have polls. We can look at what people think about issues. I mean, we have some pretty good polling, actually, out there. It does not, for the most part, you don't really get more than a superficial look at it in media reporting. But you can go and read the full reports and the data tables and all that stuff, which is what I like to do every once in a while. And you find interesting stuff. And what you find is actually, particularly this transphobic shit, actually quite unpopular.
So Hassan can become the most prominent among a smaller pond. But maybe the Young Turks are trying to...
No, but it's still a bigger pond than your pond. I mean, you are sort of artificially boosted by the algorithm and the right-wing media ecosystem and shit like that. But it doesn't change the fact, Tim, that your target audience is by definition a minority in the population. Like, even if you got 100% of the people in the US who agree with you on all your key positions, whatever they are on a given day, because they do change it fairly regularly, depending on who he's arguing against, you would still have only a minority of the population.
to reach regular people. And it seems like that's what Anna Kasparian is trying to do. Well, good luck to him. The left...
Well, it's not so much a matter of who you're trying to reach, it's what you're trying to reach them with.
will cannibalize you, and that's the nature of reality. I'll leave it there. Next segment is tonight at 8 p.m.
Yeah, okay. Done with that shit. Let's see, what have we got? What can we do? Okay, this'll be good. We've only got 14 minutes.
Stop!
The number one rule of pride, according to Voosh. I can't wait to hear what the number one pride is, according to...
Stop! Go outside.
What the fuck? And does he know that character on the t-shirt in the drawing means meat?
It's very important that we talk about pride. Listen up, guys.
Oh god, but no, it's very important that you not talk about Pride, Voosh. We don't want to hear any more of your fucking pride takes.
Pride Month has almost started. Now, first of all, I want to be clear. There is a reasonable risk of somewhere in this country one or multiple hate crimes being committed against individuals.
One or multiple? I think you can do better than that, my dude. I mean, I haven't even seen the figures. It's like, one or multiple is an understatement in a relatively good year. This is not a relatively good year. And even in places that you would generally think is LGBT friendly, like fucking New York City, for example, we're seeing arson attacks on LGBT clubs and shit. I mean, one or more hate crimes? No, no, no. We're talking. I shudder to think what the figures for this year are going to look like when they finally get tabulated.
Individuals or groups of people who are participating in some.
Oh, the number one rule of Pride is go outside. Hello, Toriel Dreamer. Good to see you. Oh, very good to see you. And it is hard to have a parade in the living room. I can think of other things Pride-related I can do in a living room, given the right company.
We are at a very elevated level of discourse when it comes to LGBTQ people.
Incidentally, I have in my head, I still need to put together the clip and do my little special effects shit on it for my Tim Pool introduction animation. And it is thanks very much to Toriel Dreamer's movie recommendation of Knives Out and the green onion, glass onion. The green onion. I'm hungry, apparently. That I have it. Because I want to take the best line, an elevated level of discourse. It means that you go on to the end that's too deep for fucking Voosh to be on, and where Tim Pool drowns. But the best line of Knives Out, in just terms of purest absurdism, I'm going to have is sort of a voiceover with a little echo as we zoom in at tight on Tim Pool's pensive-looking face. And that line is, "What were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?" Because that is, I can't help think of Tim Pool every time that line echoes through my head, and it does it every day.
So obviously, I strongly suggest that everyone stay safe. I really do believe...
Wow, I'm so glad that he's going to tell us to stay safe. Is he going to do that kink at Pride bullshit again?
That if you go out there, you are overwhelmingly likely to be fine. However, I'm not the only one saying this. At most Pride events, there will...
Yeah, and most of the people saying this, I think, are probably better informed.
Probably be some kind of consideration made for this possibility. If you would all...
I have to say, I've also talked to other people because I raised the issue really early on. Like, I mean, probably before the month even started, to say this is a year in which there is probably considerably more likelihood of state and parastate anti-LGBTQ violence at Pride. Are any of these major Pride events doing anything to cater to that possibility in terms of security or anything like that? And other people who I also know who are also trying to raise this exact issue also said, they're like, all I could get was, that's a good question.
Feel concerned, just...
I like billions of blistering barnacles, by the way.
Consider your safety, is all I'm saying, okay? I will be attending Pride events in person.
No, you gotta give us warning so we can go to different Pride events. No.
A lot of you will as well. I will not let fear of Republican reprisal deter me from being a homosexual in public, as is my God.
No, we don't have to... LGBT people don't have to claim this prick, do we? It's bad enough when Margaret Hodge turned out to be Jewish, and it turned out I had to claim her.
Given right? That's point number one. Point number two is that if any attacks do happen against people at Pride events, or just Pride events in general, no doubt there will be things like bomb threats, whatever else, the right will immediately deflect blame and say that it is our fault.
Well, or more likely, it won't so much be deflecting blame as they will claim somebody else did it. Yeah, I know, I don't want him. If I'm at a Pride event, I mean, this is like, I already don't really do Pride events because they're just so full of corporate branding, and it's just not a space where I actually feel particularly celebratory. Like, the last time I went to Pride was Cardiff Pride, several years ago, and I went specifically because Gays and Lesbians Support the Miners were going to had a contingent at the march, except you couldn't fucking see them. Because it's South Wales, Gays and Lesbians Support the Miners were really, really fucking big, still are really fucking big in South Wales. You couldn't see the contingent, because they were like fucking sandwiched between Sainsbury's and a predatory lending company that is known for giving loans at 1700% APR. I mean, like the last Pride Month event that I went to that I actually, well, there's the Big Queer Picnic. If you're ever in Cardiff during Pride Month, Big Queer Picnic is always a good bet. I mean, the other one was Dark March Chicago, which absolutely fucking rocked. That was like, I mean, but like that, with including the after party and all the the musical acts and everything. I mean, that was the scene I could get with. But like you go to these pride parades, especially this year, I see. I have to say, Voosh's heart seems to be in the right place in some videos. Like in this one, there's not a whole lot of criticism that I have, except I don't want to have him at a Pride event that I'm at. That would suck. But I mean, he says some seriously fucked up shit, and he has a habit of organizing racist hate mobs to attack people of color that he disagrees with. I mean, he's a piece of shit. And his main, I mean, he really is just completely overrated, and he's created a following that, I mean, you look at his chat and it's awful. But I mean, I have to say, in this video, I'm not finding a whole lot to actually really, a whole lot of bones to pick. It's just making me think about how depressing, like a modern Pride event is. And thinking about, it's like, I can't think of a Pride month where that sort of parade atmosphere has seemed more inappropriate, actually. Because it's like, what the fuck are we celebrating? We're under attack in over 60% of the surface area of the United States. There's a fucking Supreme Court that will happily endorse it the minute they get the chance. And it turns out, if they don't get the chance, they will manufacture the chance. They will issue an opinion in a hypothetical case if it gives them a chance to screw over LGBT people. What the fuck are we celebrating in the U.S.? Like, 260,000 refugees, internally displaced people, celebrating that? I don't get it. Like, this is, if any year was a good moment for Pride to be to just return to being a protest with riot en suite, this was fucking it.
They will say that we were gay within 1 mile of a child. They will say that rainbow rays were emanating from the parade floats and corrupting children in the city. They will do or say anything.
Most likely they will call it a false flag attack.
The reason they will do or say anything is because they support any acts of terror that might or will be committed against queer people.
Okay, and this is where it's actually painful to have much more in the way of ethics than any of the people that I actually look at on this stream, because I have to be fair, and I have to say, yeah, I mean, no notes here. Like, if you've played by Voosh or Tim Pool or Caleb Boppin rules, I just sort of pretend he didn't say anything. Pigeon on chessboards, that sort of thing. But I gotta hand this one to him. He's not wrong about this.
They are fully in favor of it. There is no point where they will go, oh wow, this has gone too far. They won't do it. It won't happen.
Individually, they might. Individually, you sometimes actually see Fash sort of step away from it. And it's interesting how many examples there are of, like, former Fash who specifically say the thing that really got to them was the public shaming and having Nazi scum off our street yelled at them that got to them and made them start having another think about what they were doing with their lives. That actually, I am a big believer in making their lives as uncomfortable as possible, and even I was surprised to hear that was being pointed out as the thing that led to some moments of clarity for these pricks.
They're ready for it, so just be fully aware of that. Also keep in mind that even though, Republican media will be ready, will hit the ground running to blame you guys for any crimes you may be the victims of, that does not mean the median voter will be swayed by this.
Yeah, except the thing about the median voter is I don't give a shit about the median voter. See, he believes in the median voter. I mean, he because he believes that this is all going to come down to election results. But the reality is, the median voter doesn't like what the fucking Republicans are doing and the Democrats are tolerating right now. The median Republican voter doesn't even particularly like it. And you know, that matters about as much as a swag full of assholes. Because the pricks are in power and they're doing it, or they're tolerating it, and nobody seems to be particularly bothered about whether anyone is happy that they're doing it. So, I mean, yeah. It's like, you look at studies, I mean, and let me just bring in a parallel here. Because studies of there are some pretty good studies of public opinion in fascist Germany. Because the thing is that their propaganda system was based very much, they didn't have like polls like we know them, but they really kept their finger on the pulse because they wanted to know what was working, what line was working, what line wasn't working, so that they could manipulate people more effectively. And so what you find out from that, when you start looking at that, is a lot of things that the Nazis got away with were actually kind of unpopular. People weren't all that keen on them. People overwhelmingly weren't actually particularly happy to see their Jewish neighbors being carted off to destinations unspecified. You know, and the thing about that is, the thing about that public opinion, the thing about that mild unspoken disapproval is it's fucking worthless. It doesn't matter that people don't like it unless they do something about it. The only reason it matters at all that people don't like it is that is potentially a springboard from which you can convince them to take that disapproval that they feel internally and turn it into doing something useful. But as long as it's just disapproval, it doesn't matter. Like, people didn't really like the fucking invasion of Iraq. That didn't stop the invasion of Iraq. Like, people really didn't like it.
Pride has...
But, oh, I see it's already 1 o'clock. For a while, it seemed to be dragging on when I was doing the Anna Kasparian thing earlier. And then it just sort of zipped ahead. So, thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you, Black Anarchic Reacts. If you're looking for some viewing, if you want to see, see some interesting stuff about some of the many political and religious cults, specifically targeting the black community, also some amazing streams on Caleb Muppet specifically, check out Black Anarchic Reacts on YouTube. That's good value, and their roll-on pre-stream soundtrack is always very good value too. So definitely worth checking them out. Thank you for joining us, Toriel Dreamer. Thank you, Mask. Thank you, Adria. And did I forget anyone? If I did, I didn't mean to. Thank you as well. And I will be back Friday night at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time for another episode. And if you have ideas for videos that you'd like to see me react to, drop the link in the Discord. I'm always game for suggestions. Because I kind of go with videos that I haven't necessarily watched. And sometimes those turn out to be absolute gold, and sometimes they're just boring, and I'm just not getting anything out of them. So feel free to drop stuff in the Discord if you see anything good. Have a good night. See you soon.